Hope everybody's doing well. Today, the 17th of November, and somebody can give me a thumbs up or a howdy out there or something so I know you can hear me.
Howdy.
Anybody? All right, James. Thanks, Larry. All right, James Meek, thank you. Looks like we're a few shy this morning as far as attendance. Let me make some changes here real quick on the settings and get this going in the right direction. All right. What else we have going on today? Let's see. Oh, so yesterday was the midterm, and um, everybody did really well for the most part on the written portion. The irrigation portion was definitely the struggle for most people. And I did, intentionally give you a little bit of review before you went into it, just because of different factors, grading some of the packets prior to the midterm and getting comments back to some of you. And I didn't think it was fair that some of you got comments back of what to include to make sure you include on an irrigation plan where the other ones have not received any comments yet. Um, if you just want to make some notes if this ever comes up again between now, what are we in week 5? So we have three more to go this week, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 3.5 weeks to go after today. The irrigation, make sure that you have the water meter located. Make sure that you have a backflow preventer set in that same line that's feeding from the main line to the irrigation line. You want to have a backflow preventer in there. Make sure your ICVs are the pipes are running to your ICVs because those are irrigation control valves. So those are what open and shut with the solenoids on top. Open and shut from the controller. Make sure you have a controller as well. Some of you put the rain gauge in there. So moisture detector or rain gauge will shut off the um, sprinkler system, and that was really a good thought. And then also make sure you have main supply lines in addition to the lateral lines. So the supply lines are the larger pipe that carry the main pressure of the water. And then when you go to the lateral lines, the pressure would typically decrease because there's additional length. But dropping it to a smaller pipe size, it will keep the pressure either the same or increase the pressure depending on the length of the supply and the lateral. So make sure those are included. Make sure you're using half heads or portion heads, quarter heads, wherever, um, whenever you're up against sidewalks, driveways, planters. Um, Quite a few of you use nothing but full heads or majority of full heads and a few half heads. You don't want a water spraying onto a building. Typically, it's spraying away and away from planters because you'll have the drip system in planters to irrigate the shrubs or annuals, perennials, etc. Make sure that your drip system is hooked up to an ICV. It has it's on a zone of itself because those typically will be watered in a different length of time than the grass areas, the lawn areas. So those are some of the quite a few of the things that were missed on the midterm part 2. All right, let's see that I did see a comment come across. James again, or I'm sorry, James Meek says he went too much detail to make an overall plan. It came back to bite me. Yeah, it's not so much detail, James. You were headed in the right direction. It's just you were focusing too much. Um, I'm not sure what you're focusing too much on, but um, I don't think your plan was too overly detailed. It was just um, maybe something that you haven't done before, so or a lot of you haven't done before, laying out a sprinkler irrigation system. So there was a lot of consideration into it. I kept referring back, and I think in your packets I referred back to see the PowerPoints on that example for irrigation. I think it was the second or third slide. The first day that we talked about irrigation had a good layout showing coverage. That was another thing that was missing on a lot of drawings was a overlapping coverage. If you have inline several full head sprinklers, they're not going to overlap in every single place, only in some places. So you want to make sure you have full coverage, and that's what the quarter heads, half heads, or adjustable heads can facilitate to get that full coverage. So typically you'll lay out your outside lines first, or your outside sprinkler heads first, and then the center of it you'll lay out second. Um, and I think, James, before I come to you, I thought, Larry, did you have a question? I thought I saw your hand go across. Larry, did you have a question? I don't know if you
No, I was just telling you we could hear you.
Yeah, Larry, go. Oh, wait a minute. You're probably, guys are talking. Wait a minute, Larry. It would help if I had my speakers on, right? And my volume turned up. Hold on a second here. I didn't even turn on the speakers this morning. All right, go ahead, Larry.
I was just telling you we could hear you.
Okay. But I couldn't hear you. I'm just like rattling on here and just having a good time. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate it. James Meek, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what I was thinking over it for the most of the day a little bit, and I think what I did was I didn't make my coverage large enough because I only stuck to 12-foot diameter spray, so I had to do a bunch more heads than I probably should have,
Right.
and I didn't have an overall plan in mind. I was just going along placing.
Right. Right. And that's really important. I know when you look at something, I know it's a test and you have to think fast on it and everything, but you know and here again, this is where sketching comes in. So great point, James. You know, you could quickly sketch out something to kind of figure out how you're going to approach that irrigation test. And again, if you take the mindset of you do your perimeter first and then work on your interior, you'll save yourself a lot of time because what's going to happen if you get your perimeter set, and there again, James, back to your comment, you need to have enough typical average throw because we didn't have to calculate psi, drop in volume because of pipe size. We didn't have to get into all. I mean, that's as you guys saw, that's a whole science in itself. And it could be a great test question. You know, count the psi of this pipe going from 3/4 to half with a supply pressure of 60 pounds per square inch. I mean, that could be just a one test question in an irrigation problem. But you guys were just supposed to lay it out, and there again, James, if you use, or everybody, if you use an average throw of 5 feet, a 5 foot radius on a half head or a 10-foot diameter on a full head, which is about the average that you're going to get, and then just base it off of that, and you can do the perimeter first, and then that will lay out what your interior needs to be. So yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge, I know, and so with that said, I won't be able to go over much more than that because we still have 2 students that need to take the test, and which will lead me to announcements here in a second. Um, so anyway, you guys took a really good shot at it, and a lot of you were successful in getting it done to some degree, and the amount of work you got done on it was good. So I saw you blasted through, most of you blasted through the test questions pretty quickly, and there again, I won't review those until everybody's taken the test. For those of you watching the recording, and have not taken the midterm, Friday is a last opportunity to take the midterm. It was on Monday yesterday, and they'll give you till Friday to make that up. But after Friday, I will not be accepting any makeups on the midterm exam. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go over to the announcements. Let me stop sharing this and go to the announcements. I sent out a bunch of announcements yesterday while I was grading the tests and try to get us caught up on. Let's see. All right, so you should be able to see the announcements. So the review for the final exam will be on 11:30. So Monday after we come back from Thanksgiving break, I'll have the review for the final. And then the final project has been moved up by 1 day, about 1 day. It wasn't a full day, but you have till 11:59 p.m. on the 15th now. It was the 16th. I think I had it set at 12 noon, maybe something like that. I can't remember. But it's moved up to the 15th now because in one of the meetings I was in, we were discussing the final exam week, and some of our coordinator, our chair, department chair, said that, let me get to December here on the calendar, said that finals actually start on the 12th, is what the schedule shows right now. Saturday the 12th is when they start. So they're moving up the date that we have to have the final grade reports in, which I need more time to grade all the drawings and the questions for the final exam. So it was the 16th. We moved it up to the 15th, and there again it's at 12:59. So on the 16th, I'll be able to grade all the papers and then get the final grade report by Thursday, the 17th. So just to let you know, that is why it was moved up. And then if you didn't take the midterm, like I said, for any of those who are either listening or watching the recording, either watching now, listening now, or going to watch the recording, we have a couple people who have not taken it as well, and you have till Friday, Friday at 12 noon to take it. It is open for, what do we do, 12:30 to 3:30, so 3 hours you'll have to take the midterm. All right, and I think that wraps up the announcements. And let me go to email real quick here. And let's see, I think I have that open. And so just to backtrack a little bit, yesterday before the exam, I announced about a entry-level job opening, and let me go back to my email here, my inbox, and I'm just going to look real quick. I don't see any attachments as far as resumes. So my assumption is that there's nobody interested in this entry-level job. So by the show of hands, if you are interested and just did not get me a resume in yet, the reason I'm pushing so hard is because this morning I had Aerotech contact me again and say, hey, do you have anybody? And I let him know that I wouldn't know until Monday or Tuesday. So he's really putting the pressure on because he wants to set up interviews. So by a show of hands, is there anybody that's interested in the entry-level job that was involved substations, electrical? All you need to know is AutoCAD. They'll train you on everything else. It sounds like a good opportunity. I don't know where the company is located or anything about the company because Aerotech is a hiring, not a direct hire, but a headhunter. I don't like using that. A recruiter. That was the word I was looking for yesterday. He's a recruiter and for companies. And so they don't give you that information, but you would have to contact them. Brian, you're interested in that? So if you'll send me your resume as soon as possible after this class, or I will contact Aerotech probably either during this class, Brian, as soon as I get your resume, I'll send that over to them, and um, I'll get that over to them. So James Meek says I was focusing. Oh, wait a minute, that was on the. James Meek says I was interested, but my resume is not ready for at all for a position, and I have too much work with these 8-week courses. Okay, James, what I would do if you are interested is, you know, you don't have to get it professionally looking. I mean, it sounds like to me, and this is kind of the beat I have on industry right now. When people put out a job posting, they're really hungry for people because, especially with entry level jobs, and especially with this one, um, you know, it's not requiring a 2-year degree. It's not requiring somebody almost graduating. They're just looking for entry level people. So you might want to just brush it real quick, James Meek, and just send it over when you can. So that's just my advice, but I understand what you're saying. James McGinn says, I'm only interested for now in a interim position with no, yeah, well, we don't get many of those anymore, James McGinn, interns positions with no pay. There was this is quite a few years ago, something about internships that they were uh, abusing the interns by making them running errands and nothing to do with the industry related internship. So they've really switched a lot to apprenticeship programs now. We have one that's formulating right now. We have two that actually are formulating for the machine shop. We're just in the works of putting that together, but they identify them as apprenticeships, not internships. So and James Meek says you will, and James begins. So sorry, yeah, that's all I have right now. I don't have any non-paying internships. Um, Well, they could give me a card for food and gas. I don't think so. No, you'd have to go on payroll. Yeah, you have to go on payroll, and that's a whole other thing, right? So that's in the internship. So there again, I'm not trying to pressure you guys or do something, but it's an opportunity. And sometimes you have to set those priorities. Like I said, even if I send this over, doesn't mean that you're going to get called for the interview. I mean, that's hopeful. And even if you get called for the interview, there's probably other people that are interested in this. And I'm not trying to be any negative or anything, but don't go to this panic thing. Oh, I'm sending the resume, therefore I have a job, and therefore how am I going to jump all my classes? And you escalate with worries. You know, don't do that. Just take one step at a time. One thing I've learned over many years is not to worry. Things always work themselves out. Maybe not for the way you think they should work out, but they always work out some way, somehow. So don't panic on things is my bottom line on that. All right, so send those over if you want, if you're interested in that job. And the other thing is health services sent over some information. And what the heck was it about? We're here for you. They're doing scheduling a virtual health and wellness appointment for nurse consultation, information resources, health and wellness education, and more at health services. Um, so if you are interested in that, let me put this up real quick. And application maybe, yeah. And you can take I didn't send this out, so if you're interested in a wellness um, consultation with our campus nurse, virtual, or you may just want to write this information down again for the South Campus there. If you want to write it down or take a picture of that, that is one of the announcements that went out that I wanted to share with you. And let me see, start sharing that. And another announcement was, let's see, health services, and what was this one here? Okay, we talked about the review for the final exam, and I think that was it. Entry level drafter. All right. So that is that. And as I said previous, we will not review the midterm until we come back on the 30th. And because the deadline to take the midterm is Friday, excuse me, this Friday, as per announcements that went out. All right, so if we don't have any more comments or anything, I will get back to sharing this file. And at first it wouldn't let me download the file because I said I had too many PowerPoints in there. Imagine that, too many PowerPoints. Let's see, codes. So this week we're to talk about codes and standards. With every project you'll deal with, mostly you'll typically deal with city codes and standards. And we need just to be aware of them. They're ever changing. If you do anything for your front yard, there's certain requirements all the way from HOA to city requirements are set in place. I probably shared this with you before. I used to volunteer for a city. This is when I was in high school with a city, and I rode around with the city inspector. And this inspector was, usually they'll have inspectors that specialize, let's say, in plumbing and electrical. Or maybe they'll specialize in framing and drywall, or foundation and grading, or something like that. They'll have specialties for, have inspectors for these different areas. This inspector, and this was a small town in California, and they had one inspector, and he was specialized in it all. He could do framing, drywall, grading, plumbing, electric. He could do everything. So working for him, he would drive around and we'd go out on inspection, inspect it, and then we got back in the truck going to the next site. But if he saw something that he didn't remember that had been permitted, he would actually call it in and find out if it was been permitted, and then people could get in trouble if it wasn't permitted, and typically a structure. When I was doing landscaping for different cities in California this many years ago, we would have a city truck that would stop by and check and see if we had the permit to operate in the city, number one, the licensing to operate in the city. And then also, if we're putting irrigation in, did we have a permit for it, and did we have an inspection set up for it? So these things can happen just out of the blue. Typically, as well, you don't, depending on the size city, you usually don't have the inspector that's going to usually catch something like that. But and some inspectors don't, out of sight, out of mind. They don't want to catch things like that. But if you are going to do something of major, you probably want to check with your HOA and the city as well for different codes that are in place. All right, and we have within, whether we're doing commercial or city, commercial or residential, we're going to have different requirements that go into that. And they can go all the way from traffic flow to what businesses can open to different businesses, or if you're in a residential area, what square footage can that new house be that's going to be built across the street. How is it going to be? They'll even get into the landscaping. I told you about one development that's next to us, and they have the front yards are required. You're required when you purchase a house there that a part of the agreement into paying the HOA fees is that you have your front lawn taken care of, mowed and trimmed, and mow, trim, and blow, or whatever it's called. So that's part of a requirement. That's part of the HOA requirement. So it can just get involved in different codes that you have to be aware of. So a standard is a document agreement containing technical specifications. So they'll tell you what the standard is, hook up an ICV, or what is the standard depth of running a supply line. What is the standard positioning and location of a backflow preventer, for example. or what is the standard for how many trees? This gets down to usually HOA, not so much city, but standard for how many trees that you can have, or the minimum amount of trees that you can have in a front yard. So there's a bunch of standards, and they're called out. They're called out with documentation, and that's why you have to look into whatever you're doing, what you're going to do. So probably shouldn't say this as it's being recorded, but one of the things I did not do was clear our new garage door with the HOA. When we first figured out that we had to have the garage door replaced and not repaired because of various things, along with the motor, the lift, the garage door opener. When we discovered we had to all replace, my wife, being the smart one of the two of us, said we probably should check with the HOA, because we started thinking about, what kind of panels we're going to have on there, what kind of color, all this whole thing gets into play. And so we saw one house in our development that has these longer panels across the garage door. So we said, oh, well, those are really cool, but we didn't see them anywhere else. And so that's when my wife said, well, you probably should check with the HOA and make sure it's okay. So we went ahead and ordered the garage door, and it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks out. It was a long ways out before they're going to install, because materials, COVID had just probably a couple months into it. Materials were lacking, etc. And that's the reason they gave us anyway. Along with bicycles, they were highly expensive. That's another story. But so I contacted the HOA, and they said, well, when you get closer to knowing exactly which door and when you're going to have it installed, what type of door, just let us know, and there's a form to fill out. Well, I never did go back on that, because I was like, time, right, to fill that out. So I never did. They never came by and said, hey, you have a different panel garage door on there. So they have enough to keep them busy trying to keep up with, yard inspections and trash cans in our community area to keep up on. So there are codes for different things, and you might be surprised on the different things that there are codes for and standards for that you need to adhere to. So just be aware of it going into projects. City codes, legal code is a body of law written by a local non-solvent government authority, such as a municipality. So the cities are usually will write these city codes. They may have to incorporate state or federal codes within those. They cannot always override certain state or federal codes. Sometimes they have to incorporate those into it. But sometimes the federal and state level will give them the flexibility to write codes about different areas that pertain to that specific city because of a specific environment or situation that's going on there. So codes, and then there's standards as well. So they're incorporated, the standards are incorporated in here. So here's a section code for landscape requirements. And here they define the purpose. Landscape is accepted as adding value to the property. And its general value is in the general welfare of the city. So they start getting specifically what any improvement in specifically, but in general terminology here. And then they'll get into more specific terminology when you get down into the planting and the irrigation. They'll have specific codes for those. Usually the planning manager, depending on the size of the project, will go through the planning department. You will have to pull permits for some things as well. And if it's a structure or something like that, how is that going to have an impact on your neighbors? Even modifying the drainage of the property that you have, how is that going to affect neighbors? How is that going to affect your house? So a lot of it has to do with your safety, the safety of your family, the safety of the structure. A lot of it has to do with the safety of neighbors, neighboring properties as well. So these codes and standards are not just to irritate the heck out of you. Yes, they do generate some revenue for the city, Some of them get quite pricey. Going back about 25 years ago, one of my brothers, the landscape architect, had a house built. This was probably more like 30 years ago. I can't remember now, but and they were on a well system there. And then when they went to pull the permit for the meter, they had to get a meter installed. They had to pay for the water that was being delivered from their well. So yeah, it was weird. Anyway, I won't go down that road. But it was like, I don't know, like $5,000 for the permit to install this meter. So it was just horrendous. So you run in different situations where it seems like gouging, but a lot of these, are like a 10 or 25 or $50 permit fee. And what that involves a lot is for the inspection of your plans, and if there's any um, uh, structural things being done, improvements, structural improvements or changes, they'll have to run it by their engineer, which he's more expensive than the plan checker. So that has to go through a whole series. Let's say it involves, let's say you were putting fire sprinklers throughout your house, and it was a 2-story house and 4,000 square feet or something like that. That could affect water pressure off the main. Therefore, the fire department would get involved in that. So it can be different departments that would have to get involved. If you were tying into the sewer, then the city sewer department would have to get involved in that. So it could involve other departments other than maybe just applying for an irrigation permit or something like that. So that was just the quick and easy on codes and standards. We will talk, I think we have, let me check, we have one more on that. No, we'll go directly tomorrow. We'll go into cost estimates. Cost estimates tomorrow. And then we have one more, I think we have 2 sessions on cost estimates that we'll go into. So, but just be aware of codes and standards. If you're doing any improvements, we will do some investigation on those for your final project and for your front yard as well. But nothing super major. I just want you to be aware of them, number one, and number two, how do you research them if you need to. So we'll talk more about that on the projects that we have in front of us. All right, that concludes that. And let me see if I have that. I think I do have that pulled up somewhere. And for our packet number 5 that we are working on, let's take a look at that. And I think we talked about that, so let me. All right, get that queued up for you. Packet number 5 video. And I think it is just a couple, 3 minutes, about 4 minutes long. So watch this, and then we'll come back with any questions. All right, we are going to review what is ahead of packet number 5, which is next week, and what the assignments are, and go into a little bit of detail on those to give you a heads up. Let's take a look at packet number 5. We have that due on 11/30. So look at the date that you're now looking at this video, and you'll understand that there is a nice week of Thanksgiving break in there, and so you'll have additional time to complete these two assignments. All right, so the first thing, the first assignment will be a landscape plan for your final project, Rotunda Garden. This is not a final plan submission, but a check to see where you're at in CAD on a D sheet. Include all details and 50 points for that. All right, so here's a nice outline of what you should be working on and working towards. Again, this is not a completed sheet. I just want to do a check and see where you're at. If you send in a blank sheet for this assignment, you'll receive 0 points. But I'll grade accordingly on how much information you send in. If you're at 50% done, you'll get 50 points for that. All right, and then breaking it down from there. All right, so that is assignment number 1. Backing up again, this week we'll be covering the PowerPoints, we'll be covering codes and cost estimates. I have those attached right up there. All right, and then here's your homework, and this has already gone out to you. Here's a little more information on tables, and this is the last sheet in the 6-sheet set, which includes the sheet of tables includes plant materials, irrigation, material list with quantity and cost, total project cost, include notes for code and standard requirements. And that's 100 points will be for that one sheet, and that's inclusive. So here's a sheet breakdown that we've seen before, a little more information on sheet number 6. Down here is more information on the tables that will go on the sheet 6, and along with the notes for the codes and standard requirements for the city that you're in. And we'll talk about that more on Monday, codes and standards, and this will be codes and standards for the city that you're in. All right, and then assignment number 2, a sketch 2-point perspective of your front yard landscape plan. This is landscape, front yard landscape project. This will be 8.5 by 11, 25 points possible on that. And we'll use, I'm going to add in there, use color pencils on that. It's 2-point perspective. This is a sketch. Again, 8.5 by 11, title block and border, landscape position, title block completely filled out. And then as you'll see, there is not going to be a lab 3 assignment and not a lab 4 assignment. There'll be a couple of lectures to finish out the week. After these first 2 lectures for Monday and for Tuesday, and I'll have a couple more Wednesday and Thursday lectures, but no additional assignments. And that will give you extra time to work on this, and then again, you'll have an extra week ahead of you for Thanksgiving. All right, so that's the recap of what is ahead, and hopefully that was helpful. As always, we'll talk about it Monday, but as always, send me an email with any questions. Thanks so much. All right. Any questions on that? Yeah, James, go ahead.
Okay, so I see it says like the drawing's to scale, so we don't need to put any dimensions on there for like the walkways and stuff. That's
Okay.
what it says on there. It says like no dimensions, drawings are to scale.
Okay, hold on one second.
It says this plan is to scale.
Let me get back to that 1 second. Okay, so we're talking about assignment 1.
Yes.
All right, final rotunda. This is not a final submission. Well, it's going to be on a D sheet, so yeah, go ahead and scale it.
No, it just says no dimensions though.
Oh, no dimensions. Yes, that's correct. So you, whenever you have a plan, any plan that's to scale, you don't necessarily have to have dimensions, because especially with landscape plans, they can just slap a scale in the field on it and be able to figure out where certain things are within, 6 inches. So
Is that why whenever I put things to scale on the stuff that I turn in, you keep on putting the D sheets not to scale?
no, it depends on what you're referring to, because there are some, like on the for the tables. If you submit a table and you scale it, you don't need to scale that. That would just be NTS for tables.
Okay, let me see.
So if it was something else that I said it shouldn't be scaled,
Yeah, it was, let's see, on packet, in the most recent packet, you said, the second comment, you said, nice work, sheet scale is not to scale.
and what assignment was that for?
That was assignment, that was packet 4, that was for assignment 2, I think. Oh, that was a chart. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, that's for a table. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
any kind of drawing. Now, usually, now when I say that, no dimensions are not scaled or something like that. So perspective drawings would be NTS, your cover sheet NTS, not the scale. Detail sheet down in the main part of the in the title block will be NTS or as noted. You can put as noted because each detail will have its own scale. And that leads me right into the next video. So yes, so that it goes back and forth. Yeah, it's not, you have to look at each sheet individually, what it's trying to communicate.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Anything else? All right. We got one more video here, and this is for the D sheet, for the detail sheet for your final project. I always love how I catch myself in these videos when I pause them. They just look so attractive. Here. All right, we're going to talk about the detail sheet. This is for both projects, for the Rotunda Garden and for your front yard project. So we'll apply to both. They're both on D sheets, and they'll be both sheet 5 of 6. So I'm going to show you how to set that up in CAD, and let's get going on that. All right, so the first thing we're looking at D sheet, this is what it's going to end up looking like. All right, I'll show you how to get to this point. And this is the basic setup. So we have 4 rows across and 4 rows down for the 16 required details. Within that, we need to figure out how to set that up first. And so I'm going to show you on this. Basically, what you're going to do first, just go into the line command and draw a line across here. And what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and turn ortho on and zoom in on this a little bit. So I'm just going to hover over here at this point and then snap into this point here, which is not, now it's not giving me the snap. So I have to do turn snaps off because it just worked a few minutes ago. So I'm just going to snap it into this point here. And then we're going to draw another line straight on down. Let's see if this snap has worked. F3 back on. Now the perpendicular snap is working. So we have a line horizontal and vertical. And so the first thing we're going to do is figure out how big these boxes have to be. So what I did is I took a total measurement across, and then I figured out that each box vertically, we'll go horizontal first, will be 7.5. So I took the total number of inches divided by the 4 and came up with 7.5. So we'll come back to here and I'll do an offset and 7.5 and go to my vertical line, 1, 2, and 3, and that will give me my offset for my vertical. And then the horizontal, I figured out the 5.5. So O enter and back to 5.5. And now come down to the line that I drew across the top. 1, 2, 3. So now we have our 16 squares. And you want to keep the control lines in here, and I'll show you why in a second. The top control horizontal you can delete, and the this one here I would keep in because it's going to encompass this side here. Use the extend command and extend those 3 lines there, and we have our boxes completed. The next step is to make viewports for each one of these. So this top left one, the bottom left, will require a polygonal viewport. The other ones are just regular rectangular viewports. So I'll go ahead and go to polygonal. Again, remember where you start because you will not click on the starting point. Okay, enter for the arc, cover, and CL, close it out. And now we have our first viewport. And again, the other ones, besides the bottom left, will just be a rectangular viewport, like so. All right. So now we have those started, so I would advise just go ahead and put all the viewports in. And what I did is I went ahead and made a small object here, and there's an example of a detail, and I think it was 1/32 for sure. I forgot what I scaled that at. It's on the other sheet instead of messing with this. Almost there. 3/4, I believe it was. And then you can position it as always. So those are the steps to get the viewports in. Get the boxes first, the control lines, and then the viewports. And then after you make the details, you zoom in, of course. Now the other thing you're going to do is fill out the title block. Let me go to my other sheet here. The title block filled out the way I want it. Of course, my name in here, and if you want to put a company name, as long as you're identified somewhere in here, that's fine with me. This one particular sheet is for the Rotunda Garden Project, and this is a detail sheet. So you always want to have what sheet is referenced in here, somewhere on here in this title block. And the other thing we have is the project name down here is Rotunda Garden. I'll put today's date in here. And here for scale is as noted, because we're going to put in some text here for each detail, each detail, and then we're going to scale each detail. So that will come as the entire sheet as noted, and here we have the reference to the scale on that. And then this will end up being sheet 5 of 6, and that's for both projects. All right, so let's take a look at the text here as the last thing. This text is that 1% that I say that you can do in paper space. Everything else should be done in model space. So here is I just want to use the text command on that. I laid the text up here and typed in the information and what the detail was and the scale that it's going to be at. And I just placed it down here and nicely positioned. Now while I have this selected, I can go ahead and after I get my viewports all made, I can go ahead and Control C. And let's go over here with the other, I'll just paste it here. I'm just showing you this one as an example. Once you have one piece of text selected and then copy it, Control V, space bar to repeat the command. Now I can place it in each viewport and align it with the other text so it's nice and neatly across. If you want to run another control line across here, after you get the viewports in, and then you can come back and edit the text. So if this was, next one, let's say a shrub. Planting detail. And then you can just go edit all the text boxes through there. Instead of going through the text command and rewriting, it's a lot easier to make one and copy it. All right, so that is how to set up your detail sheet for both projects. Sheet number 5 has And that one doesn't have the right information. That's why I went to this one, because I set this one up with the correct information in the title block to give you a good example. Sheet number 5 of 6, that's your detail sheet. So you'll have 16 details as per the directions that I have posted in packet 5. I've sent out previous. I gave you more information in packet 5 assignments under lessons. And I will be sending out an announcement as well for each sheet that will apply to both projects. All right, hopefully that was helpful. As always, any questions, let me know. Take care. All right, I heard a few things pop up in the chat box. Let me back up here. James Meek says, extend is awesome. Yeah, it's to that comment, James Meek. Yeah, we've always covered the extend command in my classes, but they've changed it, and I don't remember if it's 2020 or 2019. I can't remember the version they changed it in. It used to be a lot more complicated than what I just showed you there. It would be EX for extend, EX enter, and then you would have to select an area, hit enter again, and then select what you wanted extended. But now you can just EX enter and then just hover over what you want to extend, and it extends it out as long as you have a object that it can extend to. So yeah, that's really a good shortcut. Yeah, it cuts down time for sure. Yvonne says, if I want to copy a layout sheet from drawing A into another drawing B, how would I do that? Well, I'm thinking about that. I need to think about the question. So let me open up a file here and see if I can answer that question. I have AutoCAD open. I just need to open this here. And let me take a look. Let me share this first. It's always a good idea. Extend command hidden by trim command. Okay, one thing at a time. I'll answer that. There's two separate commands, but there's a way to get to both of them with one command. I don't know if that made any sense. Let me see here. That's nice. Nice and blank. This is blank on my end here. There we go. All right. So Iman, let me come to your question and see if I can, if I want to copy a layout sheet, okay, from drawing A. So copy one layout sheet and make another layout sheet for drawing B. How would I do that? Well, if I understand it, okay. So all you do if once, and that's why I would say in the master title block, once you have your sheets all set up, you do a save as whatever the project is. We'll just call it final project Rotunda, and you know it's going to be all D sheets for that. So you have one D sheet made up with most of the title block filled out, or the title block filled out. And so what you'll do is select that one D sheet, left click on it, then right click on it and go to move or copy. And then right down here is a little box you need, and it will create a copy. And then you need to select the sheet that you want to copy it of, and it was Arch D2. You hit OK. And then down at the bottom, you'll see Arch D3 now, which is a copy of Arch D2. So in the midterm drawing, so that's how you would do it in any drawing, whether it's the midterm or that's how you would make any sheet, a copy of any sheet. Copying a layout like Arch D and pasting it in another file. No. Yeah, that's going to cause problems if you try that. The best way is to do a save as. So if I wanted this same format for another drawing, I would just, I don't want to bring the drawing into this one, okay? Because you can copy a drawing into model space. So if I copied, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go to view, and I don't type vertically. Yeah, I didn't have another sheet open, so let me open another example. I don't know what's in here, but now, okay, so now I have two files open, and let's see what sheet sets they have. So this one over here has a detail sheet and site plan. So if I go to model space and I want this one over here in this file and I have multiple sheets, yeah, you can do that. So after you open that, and then paste it over here, and then I can have I'm going to have one detail in here, and then in my detail sheet, if you want to call it a detail sheet, I can have something in there. So that's how you can combine two files. But if you don't want the same information in this file, you do a save as. Save it as a different one, and that will carry the sheet sets forward for that different project. So hopefully I answered that. Iman, you have thumbs up, and I hope I didn't go way off track on that. James McGinn says, oh, you believe in copying a layout like ArchD and paste it in another file. No, don't copy a sheet. It is possible, but you deal with scaling and a whole bunch of other factors. That's one thing that could mess up AutoCAD. It's easier to do a save as on that. And James McGinn says, you really cannot, to my knowledge, I believe you can save the layout as a template. Yeah, so that's, yeah, exactly right, James. We saved the master title block as a template. That was a template file. And then you can always open that up and do a save as and have those sheets available to you for any file. So, yes, so copying a drawing is different than copying a layout. So yes, you can copy a drawing to drawing, just like I showed you here, Iman. Open up both of them, go to the view tab, and then tile those, and you can see them side by side. You're welcome. You're welcome. And while we're here, any other AutoCAD questions or on that detail video, anything else on that? All right. So those were the videos. That was the detail sheet. And it's just about, James said, I would like to make sure all layers are on first. Yes, good point. If you want all those layers carried forward, yes, make sure they're all turned on as well between when you're copying from file to file. Also remember when you're that second file that you're copying into, you want to set up your dems and everything. They don't always carry forward into another file. The dem styles, as James McGinn pointed out, the layers only will carry forward on the layers that you have activated in the original file or you have turned on in the original file. Your units you'll need to change or to set as well in that new file that you're copying into. Use the design center to import them if you know how. Okay, not sure on that one, James, but okay.
In the design center, if you have the drawings open, you can export or import any like specifications. Actually, more than specifications, you can do blocks too, from one drawing to another, as long as the drawings are open.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, through the design center. All right.
But you have to know how. It's a little tricky, but once you know how, it's really useful. That's how I transferred all my plant blocks from the place where I was making blocks to the sheet where I was using them.
Okay, yeah, that's it sounds a lot faster too, and that way you make sure you carry everything forward. So good point on that. Um, Iman says, do you have a specific details for final project? Well, everything I've been sending out are the details. So, Iman, let me see here. We go back to, I'm not even sure, announcements, I guess. So the thing we just talked about was the detail sheet. Let me share this again. And that's details on the detail sheet. And so there's the detail sheet. And then if you go back to, I believe it was announcements, I had more details about the final project. I think. Is that. And so here is the details, what the information for the final project, some more information on that. And that may be the only thing I've put out, other than talking about it in class. So if you need to read, I don't know which recordings those would be. There's so many, but we've talked about the final project details about each sheet throughout the class as we're covering them. So if you ask me specifically about a sheet, what that you don't know about, then I can answer that, Iman. Hopefully that will help a little bit. Let me see. Javier says, is there any way that to copy and paste layers to another file, or do they have to be done manually? Yeah, you can copy and paste layers to another file. You just turn them on. Javier, turn the layers on that you, the one that you're from the file that you're working in, turn the layers on and then select the object or objects, and then put it on the clipboard, right click and copy the clipboard, and then go to the file you're copying into. It will carry the layers forward on that. James Mick says, however, you can use the Design Center for that too. James again, concerning plant blocks, are we allowed to use the blocks you sent us earlier in the semester? Well, the assignment was that you had to make your own plant blocks for your drawing. So that is part of the textbook and everything, how to make blocks. So for the final project and for the front yard, or for the final project and for the front yard, you need to make your own blocks for those tables. And then I wanted you to use those blocks that you made, use those in your drawings to represent the plants that are listed on your table. So I guess the answer is no. Make your own blocks. James Meek says, during the lab, I can see if the professor will let me show the class. Yeah, James, right now, that's something I don't want to go down that road, but I'll let you after I'm all done if you want to do that. Then, Kevin, where do we get standard details for detail sheets? Standard, you can get them. You can Google planting details for a tree, and there is a bunch of them out there. So you can use those as well. You'll have to probably scale them and make any modifications to them. They usually come in as blocks, Kevin, and so you can modify them. But yes, you can just Google planting details for trees or planting details for shrubs. Irrigation details for ICVs, or irrigation for backflow preventer. What was the other thing that we had on there? Let's see. Oh, that was under lessons. Was that under lessons? Yeah. Let's see. So planning details you can Google, irrigation, yes. Materials table, you'll want to, of course, make it, that you'll have to make, and total cost table you'll have to make as well. So, but yes, to answer your question, Kevin, yes, you can Google those and come up with them. I don't have any ones in stock or available. Everything I've always used, you're allowed to pull those off the internet. So Kevin, hopefully that answers that. James Meek says, I use them as a baseline for how the blocks I wanted to look like. Yeah, that's a good idea. So you can use them as a baseline. Yeah, absolutely. But I want you to go through the process of making your own blocks and the different blocks for the different plants, trees, and everything else that we need blocks for. All right. So any other questions? How many do we need? According to the directions that we gave out, wherever those are at. And I think that was an announcement as well on how many trees and shrubs to use. So let's see. Right here. James, again, right here on, this is under announcements, and it was dated on, posted, it doesn't give the day it was posted, but anyway, it's probably about the 5th or 6th one down. There's the information that you're asking about. And that's the minimum. And if you're doing a landscape project, you'll need more than that. Some of you are doing xeriscape, so that would be the minimum you have to put in. And then the other factor too, this is for everybody, not just James again, but for everybody, if your lot's over treed and you're going to remove trees, obviously you don't have to put trees in, but you have to make notes of trees to be removed, no additional trees to the lot. So make sure you guys get used to putting notes in everything. If you're going, if you're not using some of what the assignment requires, justify it why you're not using it. Except for the irrigation. Even if you have an irrigation in place, you still have to do an irrigation design. You can't just say on that sheet, irrigation in place. You still have to do an irrigation design. And if you want to copy the one that you have out in your yard, you're welcome to do that as long as you get it on paper correctly. Javier says, can we include ornamental plants? Yes, you can. You can. That is just that base that you have to have on. You can add anything into that. But Javier, that and everybody else, that announcement is just the base that you must have in your yard. Again, remembering the factor that things look better in threes. So if you have 3 trees or 3 shrubs or 3 rock spill and fill formations, things look better in threes or odd numbers, I should say. So Iman says, when I want to set up units in CAD and choose architectural type, there are different precisions. How that can my model space I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the question. So we went back to the basics of 1305 and 1409, setting units and dem styles. That's how you would set that up. Is that what you're asking? I'm not quite sure what you were asking on that, Iman. I'm sorry. So back to the basics that 1409, 1305 covered, just going in and setting your units and your dem styles. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. You want to set up units in CAD and choose architectural type. There are many different precisions. Gotcha. Okay. Well, you don't have to worry so much about the precision because we're not using a lot of dimensions in here, but typically I use 1/4 precision as a starting point. And typically that's what's going to be used in industry, the 1/4 on the precision. I'm sorry, I skipped right over that precision part. So yes, 1/4 would be fine to set. We're not using a lot of dimensions in here, but a 1/4 inch on the precision would be fine. I'm on that. Hopefully that answers that. James Meek says, except Zeroscape, it says no. It says no Zeroscape. I don't see it. It doesn't say no Zeroscape. I think we. Oh, there's another sheet that I sent you. Says no Zeroscape. Well, you can use. Oh, the plant suggestions says say Zeroscape. Yeah, so you can pull off of that sheet for the plants. Those are just TCC suggested plants. That's fine. Yeah, that's no problem. I know James Meek, you were heading that direction, right, with Zeroscape, I think. So that's fine to use that plant list. I'm not sure if I'm adding or clarifying. Oh, not for the final project. Okay, all right. So did I clarify or confuse that question, James?
It was a little confusing, but I get it.
Okay.
I get what you're
Now
saying.
that you're on here, ask me what the question was.
The sheet for the suggested plants. The guy says, sorry if I'm talking to him. The guy says no Xeriscape, and it was a little confusing to me because the title of the little section on there was plants that they don't want for like high maintenance and stuff. And I'm like, when I saw no Xeriscape plants, I'm like, that's the exact opposite of what you said you don't want.
Exactly. I can see why that's confusing. So I didn't see that on that plant list, no Xeriscape, which is really, you're right, is actually the opposite of what they try to do there. Because the Xeriscape is low maintenance, low water type plant. So forget the no Xeriscape. Yeah, no, if you guys want to do that, just hit the plant list, either the suggested one or go out and find other ones. That's all fine. I'm not going to dictate what your project's going to look like. So absolutely, disregard any comments or statements anywhere about no Xeriscape. That's if anything, James and everybody else, that's encouraged. I want you to use Xeriscape, especially the way the water situation is heading. So
I'm trying to get really creative with the look stuff because I don't like the standard like field courtyards and stuff that other campuses I've been at have.
right.
And I'm like, the students really need a place where they can get away from this stuff. I know it's not a university where they're going to be spending more time, but I know there's people that are there that are they finish a class and they have to stay on campus for the next class that's in like 5 hours.
Right.
And
Yes, absolutely, you're right. And a very comfortable place to sit and study or read or listen, just comfortable. Xeriscape doesn't always provide it, but it is definitely, something that the school tries to go towards for conservation. With that said, did you check out and this is for everybody, but don't forget the Texas Superstar site I gave you?
yes, it did. It's got some
That
plants in there.
Yeah, a variety, right?
Mhm.
Everything else. So that will give you some ideas. And don't be afraid to branch out on your own. Just, looking at, there's another, Neil Sperry. Let's see. I'm looking to see if I have the book still. I think I don't see it on my bookshelf right now, but I think it's Neil Sperry. That does a great job on Texas landscaping. So there are people out there, and just some great advice and great suggestions. There's probably more information that you even want to know. So don't be
I
afraid.
keep on redoing my landscape plan because I keep on redoing my landscape plan because I don't like exactly how it's turning out, and I'm trying to go lower. I'm trying to go where it's not burdening the college, but where it's a great place for the students.
Yeah, and you can see how tough that is, right?
It's very tough. I've gone from anything from like just a field with a giant tree in it and some flowers around it for a base, of course, not like the finished product, and like to like complex gardens, and I'm getting somewhere in between.
Yeah. It's that, and my brother, I don't work with him. I've never really worked with a landscape architect, but some situations, I mean, he does a lot of parks and commercial areas, and they have to be inviting. They just, and it's you got the budget thing, which you guys don't have. Just don't put the sidewalks paved with gold or anything. But if you want to put water features in there, adding to sound, attracting birds, there's a good bird population um, on campus, and there's all ways to do that to invite additional wildlife in there. You just got to be careful what wildlife you want to get in there. So, but there's a whole complexity in doing a project like this, and it's probably um, more than 96 hours of a semester project. So, yeah, and James McGinn goes, lots of squirrels. Yeah, let's not go on that subject.
That actually brought up a thing. But you said the water feature stuff. I was wondering like if we have any limitations on that. I know in real life they wouldn't really want it. Water features are a hassle to clean and keep like balanced and all that. But if we wanted to put like a small like no, I'm just spitballing here, but like a small koi pond or something out there, could we do that?
Well, absolutely, you could do that. And so, with that said, water features, and let me go down a road of safety for a second. With adults primarily, and we get some high schoolers on campus, so quite a few high schoolers. That uh, it, that's probably not a huge safety issue. It's more of a temptation to do stuff for some people. Open water like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which is it's okay. I'm not saying don't consider it or don't put it in. I'm not. I'm just. I want you to consider some other things, or everybody to consider some other things. But there's other ways to put water features that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, and don't forget we have early college summer program where all the way from what 6 and 7 year olds are on campus
Uh,
up to teens. So that's something to consider. But with that said, you can have other types of water features that are enclosed. You can have a rock garden that has bubbler in it that can give some great sound effects.
yeah.
Uh, you could even have a moving water that overflows from a bird bath. It's going to give sound and also attract additional wildlife in there, probably with the squirrels too. Um, so anyway, there's a lot of variety in there that you can incorporate. So with budget said, don't worry so much about budget because you're not on a restraint on that. But there again, don't go, the gazebo painted in or laminated in gold leaf or something like that. So be somewhat reasonable on it. So yeah, water features, absolutely. So all right. Thank you, James, for that. Larry lost it. Fully stocked bass pond. Yeah, with fishing poles at hand. Um, yeah, good one. James, yeah. And James McGinn says, warning me, I've gone back past my 145 mark. So, um, yeah, recreational. And it's right next to it's close to it's not called the PE building anymore. It's called the, uh, not kinetics. I forgot the name of the new terminology they use for PE now. But um, Anyway, yeah, it's right next to that, Larry. So they could have fishing classes there, right? Has anybody been to the is it Bass Pro? I think it's the Bass Pro in by White Rock Lake. Oh my gosh, I think it's Bass Pro. Can't remember if it's Bass Pro. Yeah, James Meek says he has. It's incredible. They got a piece of real estate there. You walk in and you're at the ground level parking lot, but you're actually at the second level because it drops down, and this glass is just overlooking the lake, and it is just incredible. And then their fish, back to Larry, their fish collection in the tank that they have indoors is just incredible. I mean, it's just anyway, you got to check that place out for wildlife. Um, uh, oh yeah, James Meek, if you get a chance to go in there, it's crazy. The real estate. And then back to Larry's comment, of course, they have I think they still have the ponds out front that they can teach fly fishing and casting on it. So, all right, some great comments. We kind of went a little bit out and around on that. So, if there's no other questions on this for this week's assignment, you have the video to review again. I think I put all the information out there up to this point, what is needed for this week's assignments and for everything behind us. And then for next week, hopefully I'm preparing you so you'll be prepared when we come back on the 30th to resume class again. So you got enough to work on this week. We got some more lectures coming up and two more days this week. But with that said, if there's no more questions, hopefully, Iman, all the way back to you. Hopefully, I answered everything okay. And James, Meek, thanks for opening up your mic and sharing that. I'll let you share the screen in a second if you want to show something on AutoCAD. And to let you know, it's 1:53 right now, so take a 10-minute or take a 7-minute break if you want. Come back at 2 o'clock, and there's no more lecture for today. This is the last, only one lecture today. The rest of the time is lab work to work on your assignments. So, James Meek, I'll let you share the screen, and then you guys can go ahead and go into lab after that. And then I will be back at about 5 after 2 just to monitor the lab portion if you have any questions. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break here myself. So let me figure out if I can remember how to do this. And
Okay, and then I just do share content for that.
almost. Just hold on. Let's
Okay.
see. I think I have to. I think I have to make you moderator. I think. Huh. Well, yeah. Okay. Try sharing your screen. If you can,
Okay.
if you can find that function, James.
Yes. Let's see. Okay. 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 There we go.
All right, go ahead. It's all yours, and I'll be back at about 5 after 2, and you can go from there.
Okay. So what I was saying was for the design center. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of that for there, and let's make this full. If you just type in design center, has the design center there, and it will pop up. And let me add another drawing here. Let's pull up the midterms drawing, And now you can open drawings, and there is everything there that you can have. You have the dim styles. You can take this and drag it into another drawing, or you can actually click it and say add dim styles, and that will do it for that. For blocks, you just see all the blocks appear there. It should, let me see. Yeah, you should see all the blocks appear there. You can do layers, and as I said, you just click them. You can, if you hold shift, you can click all of them and then right click, and you'd be able to add that to that drawing. And you can do that with line types, multilaters, but unfortunately this only works with if you have the drawing you want this stuff to go into from open. So it has to be up here. You can't take stuff from there into a file that is not open. Did that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, good
Okay,
job. Yeah, good work on that. Good
thank you.
suggestion. Javier says, could you do it again one more time?
Yes.
I think.
Okay, so
Can you enlarge your screen?
yes,
Yeah, there you go.
there we go. It used to be available to find up here real easily, but with like the 2020 update, it like disappeared or put it somewhere else that I don't know where it is. So I just type Design Center in, or you can type in Add Center, and you click it. I have it already attached to the side because I like to use it a lot. And if you have the drawings open, let's see, what do you say? What did? Okay, get out of here. Okay, so let me switch over to what are people saying here? Okay. If you have the drawings open here, and you have the Design Center open, then you can go. A lot of times it will pop up with the folders. You want to go to Open Drawings, and then you want to just expand. Here, I'll collapse this. You just want to expand that, like the drawing you want to pull stuff from, Javier, and then you can just go into blocks or wherever you want. There's dim styles, layers. You can even pull layouts, actually. I haven't toyed around with that, and Professor Taft said it can get a little complicated importing layouts, so I'm not sure we want to touch that. But you can do line types and all sorts of stuff. Yep, you can even pull XREFs, apparently. So that is the magic of the Design Center.
All right, thanks, James. Appreciate that. So to let you know, Design Center is at the View tab.
That was me just kicking myself out of the internet on accident. No problem. Oh, so that's where they hit it. Okay.
sorry about that. I had my mic shut off. So I will be back in about 10 minutes, and we're going to lab time now. And I'll be here till 3:15 with any questions. Again, James, thank you for that. Appreciate that. And then hopefully you saw the comments I put on there to get to the Design Center. Of course, the shortcut's the fastest way. Everybody know that. Type in Design Center. But if you can't find it, go to the View tab. And it doesn't have it on there. Yeah, oh yeah, it does. View tab, and then the palettes panel, and it's right in there. If you just hover over right next to the clipboard there. All right.
Yeah, they keep on changing things around.
Yeah, well that's what they do. They change one or two little things, and it creates two things. It creates more money for them because everybody switches, thinking there's some huge changes, and number two, it creates frustration for the instructor when he's used to it being somewhere and now it's moved to somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it was in Manage before, but
yeah, I think it was. I think you're right. So let's see if. Yeah, it's not even. There's a tool palette. No, that's not the same thing. Yeah, so they moved it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'll be back about 10 after, and I'll be here till 3:15 for any questions. I'll stop the recording now, and we'll go from there. Oh, there's a comment from Brittany. Did not know that, Brittany. Thank you. Control 2 will bring up the Design Center. Great shortcut, Brittany. Good job on that. How long have you been holding that secret information? Good job on that. So you guys might want to add that to your list of shortcuts. Excellent. Great class. You guys are working together on this, and I really appreciate the comments and questions and going down different roads here. So, all right, I'll stop the recording. I'll see you in a few.